This is a rye bread. I made this rye bread with my hands. But this is so much more than a rye bread. This is also about life, about society, about community, about you, and about connection. We heard about connection earlier. Connection is what binds us together. And it's so important to have a good life to be connected. And I'm going to tell you why this rye bread is so much more than a rye bread. Seeds. Has anybody had rye seeds in their hands before? Yeah, a few? Great. I have it right here. I don't know if you can see it. This is seeds. These are rye seeds, and they represent life. They can become this bread, and if I grow this really well, I can have a lot of rye bread. The reason why I think seeds are so important is because they grow our food. Without the seeds, we can't have food, and seeds also represents biodiversity. Biodiversity on this planet is extremely important. If we don't have biodiversity, we will not have a variety of food. We won't have trees, flowers, we wouldn't have humans. Diversity is really, really important. Think about biodiversity like your friends. You don't want to have one friend. You like to have lots of different friends. Some you can talk to about different things. And it's the same with food. If we did not have biodiversity, you could think about you have to eat pierogies or lasagna for all your meals every day. That wouldn't be exciting. It wouldn't tempt you as much. So therefore, seeds are really, really important to us. And in a lot of ways, they are kind of under threat because there's companies who tries to own these seeds, so we can't decide ourselves the range of biodiversity we want. So therefore, in all your bags, in your TEDx bags, there's a little bag of these rye seeds for you. And I want you to think of them as diamonds. These are your new diamonds, and I really mean it. You can do a lot of different things with the seeds I'm giving you. You can go home and boil them and put them into a soup, or you can boil them and make a salad of it. You'll get inspired in the lunch later, how you could do that. But you could also just have them sitting next to your computer on your desk to remind you that you have a responsibility to make sure we have biodiversity on this planet. You could also give it to somebody who can grow them, and you'll get some rye coming out of the soil. That is fantastic. I love rye. And why do I love rye? First of all, because I'm a chef. And I love everything that tastes good. And rye tastes really, really good. And as you can see in the pictures, lots of different things comes out of rye. You can cook it and eat it. You could put it in your cakes. You can put it in bread. You can do all kinds of different things with it. And when you're a chef, the first thing you think about is flavor and cooking really wonderful meals that you can share with other people. And then all the rest starts. How is that possible? Does it have to be clean, fair, and all these issues that goes into food is the next step. Because if it doesn't taste good, I can't tempt you to change your ways. So the first thing you have to think about, it has to taste good. Rye is only responsible for 1% of the grains that we have here in planet Earth, so there's not a lot. I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a rye border in the world, and it goes all the through Europe. And we are on the north of the rye border. South of the rye border, they don't really eat rye. I don't know if you ever had a rye bread in Spain, or in France, or in Italy. No, rye is something that grows in the northern hemisphere, and it grows extremely well. It likes cold weather. It's very resilient, so therefore, if you have poor soil, it will also grow there. And it has always been a tradition here. It comes from the Middle East, but in the medieval, it started growing here, and it became a huge commodity. And it made a lot of people rich. It, grew communities. And Poland was in the 1400s about one of the biggest rye producers in North Europe. So we have this rye border, and that just shows that on the northern part of Europe, we have a lot in common when it comes to our food culture and our diet, because we have the same climate and we grow the same things. And here we can make a huge exchange and see what we can offer each other. But we are going to make some bread. From this wonderful grain, I can get flour. And flour is important as well. Can you all see that? I wish you could feel it because it has a very coarse texture. This flour is stone grown in a mill, small producer in Copenhagen. It's also organic. It's one of my favorite kinds of flours. I think flour should be stone grown, and I think it's very important that we take some of that old-fashioned ways of doing it in a new technology. So we have smaller mills that doesn't only care about how long shelf life you have in the supermarket. And why is that? That is because when you have this beautiful flour you see here, the germ is still in here. In this little seed, and it must be very difficult for you to see it, but in this little seed, inside here is a very little thing called a germ. And for one of you who don't know it, the germ is very important. It has a little bit of oil in it, and it has vitamin E. Vitamin E is responsible for fertility, therefore a very, very important thing. Industry takes out the germ because then they can have shelf lives of 2 years of flour. If you don't take out the germ, it's only about 7 to 8 months. So you can see this is about money. This is not about your health. It's not about taste. It's about money. Therefore, you should support small local millers who do stone ground their flour. It does mean something, both to your health, but also to understand using the whole of the grain. We have had mills around Europe. I don't know if if you look at, you don't see them anymore. Now they're inside factories, but we still have them in the landscape. Along rivers, on a hill somewhere, you'll see these beautiful old mills with, very romantic and so forth and so forth. But they were a really, really important part of our tradition and our history. And if you think about how many things you can say about millers, he came first to the mill. It means that you'll get, taken care of first. And that's come from history because you had all your grains and you would go to the miller and it could take 2 days for you to get there. And you'd travel, as fast as you could because you wanted to get in line first. Otherwise, you could wait for days for have your grains milled. So a lot of life was centered around millers, and societies and communities were actually, built around the mills because there was a lot of work to be done, there was a lot of activities, and there was bread, and bread has been part of our staple diet for many, 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 many hundred years. So therefore, the mill has had a center. Nowadays, we don't see them, and a lot of them are huge industrial ones, and they do not stone ground. They do a different ways that I can't really say it in English. But if you go to small millers, you can still see the craftsmanship, even though it's in an enclosed environment. And you get that feel that this more slow process, where you don't waste anything, you just use the whole grain, that is the way forward. And also, back to the taste, it gives really wonderful taste. Okay, rye bread. Can you see this? Is it possible? It has life. It has bubbles, and you can't smell it, sorry. I wish you could. It has a very nice sour smell. This is a traditional Danish rye bread. This is how we make it, and you will taste for lunch today. This rye bread is made of a little bit of wheat, but mostly rye flour, the coarse one you have here, and you have the recipe in your bag, so there's no excuse. And then there's a sourdough. This is the secret. This is life. This sourdough is mine, and it's 25 years old. I started it 25 years ago when I got married and had children, and I thought I'm going to make rye bread every day for my family now because it's so tasty and so healthy, and this is my culture. So I take this, and I've already done it because I had to do it the day before. So this has been sitting for 24 hours. First my sourdough, some water, some rye flour, some wheat, and you stir it for 5 minutes like this. And you cover it, and you let it sit for 24 hours. The 24 hours have gone, and now it's day number 2. And my other part of the work is going to be done. I add some water, and cracked rye seeds. And the cracked rye seeds give really beautiful texture, as you would taste later for lunch. And I just stir it. And I have to work on this for another 3 to 5 minutes. This bread is very runny, so I don't knead it with my hands. And normally I would say most bread is kneaded with your hands, and that's a very, very important skill. Because even though baking is scientific and you can come up with all these chemical rules, You don't have to know them. You can learn to feel the dough with texture. Why do I want you to bake bread? Because baking a bread is a life skill. If you go home and bake a bread and get to understand the difference in this, I can feel if it's right. I can smell it. I can see it on my kitchen table. Do I have to leave it a few more hours, or can I just bake it now, and so forth? It is a life skill knowledge that I think is extremely important, because if you know that, you know how you can survive, but you also will know how to appreciate the baker's work in your community. That baker who gets up 1 o'clock and goes into the bakery and bakes, and he uses his intuition, his knowledge, and his experience, because it's in the hands. And I tell you, if you do a really nice dough with wheat or spelt or emmer or some of all these wonderful grains that we have, and you start learning, you start to get to know it, there's nothing better. It's like a little baby. It feels so wonderful, and it gives you this nourishment and the beautiful bread in the end. Okay? So this is my dough, and I'm pouring it into this tin. So I went to visit a Polish baker. It's called My Father's Bakery in English. I can't say it in Polish, I'm sorry. And he's baking from my recipe all the rye bread that we're eating today. And he told me all about the tradition here in Poland, how bakers have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and how it has traveled all through Poland's history and Poland's division into between different countries. So you have influences from Hungary, from Germany, from Austria, and so forth. But he also really said it was very difficult to get real good bakers, because everybody goes to the industry, and the industry, it all happens in really closed machines. Whereas in a bakery, it's about your skills, it's about your hands, and it's about that touch. And the baker can go and look at the dough, feel it a little bit, say, no, it needs two more hours, or go to say, today we have to put it in the oven for 3 minutes more because I know this feels right. That is craftsmanship. That is about making. And I truly, truly believe if we lose that, we lose something in our society that's very important. Because that connection is about our community also. Because if you think about a lively community, even if it's a small society, or if you live in an urban, very big city with millions and millions of people, you want to have a community connection where you live. How do you create that? Yeah, I believe you do that through food. I know we can't all go back to, have everything done in the street where we live, but I don't think we should give up food. I think that if you have a bakery in your street where you can go to buy the bread in the morning, and sometimes you bake it yourself, because I think you could do both. We live busy lives. But he creates jobs, he creates an atmosphere, because we can't, the way I see it is, we have to have jobs, we have to have livelihoods where we live. We can't just live somewhere and travel for 2 hours and then go to work and come back and live somewhere where there's no lives. We like to have bars and restaurants, but we also like to have bakers, butchers, small shops that create that community and that society. The other thing is all the gossip. Think about what connects the society. That's all the little stories that we know about each other. That's all, oh, he had a child, they were getting married. All of these wonderful little stories that all tell us what goes on in our life, the connection. That can happen in a bakery. The lady who is in the bakery selling the bread, she knows so much about what goes on in the community. And that's actually a knowledge we all want to tug into. I don't mind Facebook, I like it, I'm on Twitter, it's not like that. But I don't think all the connections we have should be there. We also need that in our community. And of course, the other thing is that bread, here's another big 2-kilo brick of loaf, and you can't build houses with it, you can only eat it. But isn't it beautiful? No? This is, and in very short time you're going to eat this. I just want to say real quickly, so this rise for another 5 to 6 hours, and then I bake it for 2 hours. Recipe in the bag, no excuse. And we'll have a sourdough thing later, so you can get a sourdough home if you don't want to start from the beginning. But think about what I just did. It took me 30 hours. I worked about 15 minutes on it all together. It takes care of itself. It ferments. It just does the work because it's alive. And the industry, they bake and bread like this in an hour. There's bread companies in Denmark. They do 6 tons of rye bread an hour. And you cannot tell me that is the same quality and the same taste as this lovely bread I have here, or the one that the baker that I went and saw. He did 2 tryouts of my bread. We stand there, we have a real discussion about flavor, where should it go, and things like that. That kind of craftsmanship is something I would really like in my life and have access to, not only in my own kitchen, but also when I go out to buy it. So, I just want to say, this bread can initiate a conversation about what kind of life do we want to live? What kind of communities do we want? Do we have responsibilities where we live? Do we want to create lively spaces where there's lots of interactions? Think about that food is a shared language that has always connected human beings. When the Greeks, they went to discuss very important topics, they went to the market. They went where the food was. We have a shared history, and we have been breaking bread all through our history, and I think we should still believe that we should do that as human beings. So what I'm going to say to you is, go home and bake a bread. Learn this craftsmanship. Go out and seek some quality flours and understand the whole connection between the seed, the flour, and this rye bread in the end. I truly believe that we, as people, by understanding this, step by step, can enable change in our society and get a better place to live for all of us, where more equality and where we all have a right to a decent meal a day. Thank you very much.